Alright, next example we're going to look at to try to solve by factoring is this one right here. We have x cubed plus x squared is equal to 4x plus 4. What we're going to do, for starters, we're going to look at our problem and see what things we have. As you can see, the highest exponent for our variable is 3. That determines the degree. So therefore, we should find 3 zeros. Just like when we found linear functions, we found 1 0. Quadratic equations, we found 2 solutions. So on this one, we should find 3. I would love to be able to solve for x, but right now I've got multiple variables and they're of different degrees. So what I would do is I'm going to move my variables to the same side. I need to set it equal to 0. So now we have it set equal to 0. As you can see, I cannot solve for x in a problem like this. So what I have to do is see if I can't come up with another possible solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor, and the only way we know how to factor a 4-term polynomial is by grouping. So I'm going to group the first two together and factor out my common factor. My common factor in the first one is going to be x squared. And the next one, our common factor is going to be a negative 4. And as you can see, I do have a common factor. The x plus 1s are my common factor. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor that out, x plus 1. And I will group together my coefficients, x squared minus 4. And then this factor is linear, but this one is non-linear. It's quadratic, so I'm going to try to factor that. And it does factor. It is going to be difference of squares. So square root of the first term gives me the first term in each of the binomials. Square root of the second term gives me the second. And then lastly, as you can see, the answers have to be conjugate, or the binomials have to be conjugates of each other. Lastly, what we're going to do is set each of our factors equal to 0 and solve. When I set this equal to 0, I will get negative 1. When I set this equal to 0, I get negative 2. And then when I set this equal to 0, I'm going to get a positive 2. So as you can see, I found 3 solutions. The degree of my polynomial was 3, so therefore I found each one. I can always check my answer by plugging it back in and making sure that it gives me the same thing on both sides, or if you plug it in here, that it's equal to 0. So feel free to do that anytime you're working with an equation.